So it's our last day of our challenge, and I hope you guys have found this to be a helpful way to start thinking about your next trip. This last section is something that starts for me while I'm picking destinations and hotels and then continues like right up until the day I leave for my trips, which is the activities and the restaurants and the things you're going to do on this great trip that you have in mind. And I say it sort of straddles the planning and execution because it is important to start thinking ahead of time about the activities that you might do while you're picking your destination, thinking about how long you want to go for, and landing on your hotel so you can make sure that your hotel or maybe multiple hotels are near the activities you actually want to do. More and more when I travel with kids, I actually find myself splitting my stay between two hotels over the course of a week, even in a destination that's an island, because often you'll have different things that you can see in different parts of the destination. Much like when we sort of like understand that we will do that when we travel to places like Europe, where we want to hit multiple parts of a destination at the same time. But it often can be that way in the islands as well. If perhaps you want to start with a hotel that has access to lots of activities and end with a couple of days at a really beautiful five-star resort to just like totally unwind with your kids. Or maybe you want to stay on a big island somewhere near the hustle and bustle and then out in the remote end of the countryside. So always consider whether it makes sense to split your stay during one of these trips, partly to balance out sort of something more affordable with a couple of days at like a luxury, beautiful resort, or based on the destination, whether you might want to island hop or combine several destinations together. So starting this process of thinking about what your hotel, what your stay is going to look like, is the best way to do that. And then one thing that I have found increasingly important is not wasting time. So I often do a lot of research up at the front end when deciding like where you might want to stay and where you might want to go. And it's often a very iterative process. And then you land on a destination and you're excited about it, but perhaps you have not written down all that research that you did when you were trying to pick the destination in the first place, and you're starting from scratch. And frankly, none of us have time for that. And you don't want to miss things. So what I do when I'm researching a new destination is start a map. Start it the minute you start thinking about going to a destination. You're going to see all the maps I have. When you go into just Google My Maps, and go to Google My Maps. You're going to see my millions of maps for all my research, but you are going to create a new map. We are thinking about going to the French side of St. Martin, which is one of the destinations that has come up a lot in our searches. You can just call this trip research. Save that map and put the hotels that you were thinking about. Now, two of our favorite hotels in St. Martin are Hotel Esplanade and there's also Belmond La Semana, which is the luxury hotel option in St. Martin. Oh, see, I already forgot. So add it to map, and we'll put Hotel Esplanade as well. Add to map. That way you can start to see where your hotels are relative to what's going on in St. Martin. One aspect of maps that I think is often underutilized is the ability to take notes. So if you click on Hotel Esplanade here, which is one of the hotels, you can write notes up here. This is a small boutique beachfront hotel with the 2-bedroom suites for families. Just to remind yourself later, that that's what you're interested in, but you might not even need it for that. You might have come across something that says, oh, they have babysitting, which they do. You might have come across a blog post about babysitting while you were reviewing this, and that's something you might want to remember. And maybe you read a blog post that said you have to book that babysitting 24 hours in advance. I don't know, whatever it was. You can put, remember to book babysitting, things that you think are going to really make a difference overall in your trip that you don't want to forget about or don't want to have to re-find later, you can save those things in your notes. And then you can create different layers for your maps. So whenever I'm researching travel, let's say I've come across, which, I tend to Google best activities for kids in St. Martin. I don't think I have that blog post up yet. Best activities, things to do with kids in St. Martin, what to do with kids in St. Martin, a family vacation to St. Martin. When you start reading through some of these blog posts that other travelers who have gone to St. Martin, you might come across, look at this, a creperie that's a super family friendly restaurant. You might be skimming one of these and just forget to write these things down and then have to re-find it all later. Oh, they rented paddle boards from Caribbean Paddling. I wonder where that is. You can say add to map and also take notes, rent paddle boards for Pinnell Island Day. Our map sort of look like by the end of our research. It has different beaches that we might want to visit, different restaurants, different activities, and color coded so that we can sort of tell what's what. And one of the reasons I like doing this in maps as opposed to like a Google document is because it allows you to start to visually group together what your days might look like. So the next step is going to be kind of sketching out a rough daily itinerary. But the easiest way to come up with a daily itinerary is to make sure that you know like what things are near each other, right? It probably isn't going to make sense for you to go to this beach and then have lunch over in Orient Bay, or go to the Parrotville Bird Park and then try to get across the island to this beach. Whereas once you start to see this, you might say, oh, I'm going to grab lunch at Chez Coco and then go right down the street to this beach over here. This is on the way back to my hotel. And as you start to see where things are physically located to one another, you can start to say, oh, I definitely want to spend one day over here in Orient Bay Beach. I definitely want to spend one day here in Grand Case. I want to spend one day here in Marigot. I want to make sure I see these three main parts. Oh, I had Pinnell Island on there on my list. And it makes it enormously easier to start to think about how your days are going to work together when you can see what's near each other on the map. So one, this is a surefire way. If you just keep this running map going as you start to plan your trip, and then every time someone gives you a suggestion, oh, you're going to St. Martin, you have to make sure you go to this restaurant, add it to your map. Oh, this is the restaurant that Jenny recommended. And then use this map to create an itinerary. So to give you a few moments too of like what you might want to think about traveling with kids, because this is some of the place where our expertise really kind of like comes through. We've spent a lot of time thinking about how you might want to structure your days. So again, each of our travel guides, when you look at these, and these are kind of like what our custom itineraries look like when you work with us as well for a trip, is to think about like your morning, your afternoon, and your evening, and like what that might look like for each day. So again, if you found one of these destinations that we have a travel guide for and you don't want to plan your own itinerary, the travel guides have it all laid out for you with different options, different restaurants, different recommended activities and tours, all baked into a 7-day itinerary that you can customize as you want. And here are some of the things we think about. We try to think about one big activity per day with kids. If you've got little kids who are napping, you're sort of used to this split schedule, or you may remember this from the times when your kids were napping. It's often great to have a big activity in the morning or the afternoon, usually not both, unless it's really something you want to like pack in. But often it'll be wake up and have breakfast and have a big activity and then come home and relax in the afternoon and then maybe go out for dinner. You want to make sure you have scheduled downtime. So a big chunk of each day, you want to just be able to enjoy each other's company. Overscheduling kids is never going to be a big win. Think about restaurant schedules. When you're looking at lunch restaurants in the Caribbean, sometimes many of them don't open until noon. That might be a problem if your kids are used to eating earlier at school or at home. Make sure that you've thought about your morning snacks, and that if you've picked a beach restaurant, that you know what time it opens. So you don't get to a beach restaurant, a beach at 11 thinking you're going to hang out and have lunch, and then lunch doesn't start till noon and your kids are starving. We often think about like combine your quieter, relaxing days with the nice dinner out. If you're going to have 1 or 2 nice dinners out with your kids at nice restaurants on vacation, try to have those days be calmer days so that they're not exhausted when you go to that restaurant. Versus if you're going to have a big boat day out with your kids, they're going to be tired at the end of the night. That might be the best night to eat close to your hotel. So those are some of our favorite sort of tips for how to structure your day with kids. not to overdo it, and to really think about what does your day look like when you're thinking about where you might have your evening meals. We are big fans of hotel babysitting. We often would say get a babysitter first at nighttime, like in the dinner time before bed for a night out, and then maybe have the same babysitter come back a day or two later if you want to do a daytime activity without the kids as well, once they've kind of already had a feel for the babysitter. Most hotels will help you find the same babysitter throughout the course of your trip. Never get a babysitter the first night at a new hotel. If you're moving hotels, save the babysitter until they've had a night in that hotel. You don't want a babysitter putting your kids to bed at a new hotel for the first time. And those are some of our biggest tips for that. So today's video is actually quite short because the thing I really just wanted to show you was how to start saving things in Google Maps. Do it as you research why you might go to a destination. Drop everything in a map along with your hotels, because that might really help you figure out which hotel you want to stay at. And then keep that map going. Once you've booked that hotel and you're getting excited for your trip, keep this map going. And then as you get to your trip, you're going to have everything all in one place, and you won't have to go back and retread old ground. And it makes it really easy to plan your activities. So hopefully this is a useful tip for you. And if you've had any questions, you guys have my access to me by email this week. We've got our Ask Me Anything session tomorrow. And hopefully you've got some great ideas for how to flush out your spring break 2025.